Long ago, there was an ancient sea which separated the supercontinents Laurasia and Gondwana. This Mesozoic era was home to many aquatic beings, ancestors of modern marine life 65 million years later. This dangerous, cold, and dark sea was deemed the Tethys Sea, and in it comes our story, that of which is the tale of two species forming a peculiar interdependence between each other. At the start, the ocean was barren, was black, untouched, and unjustifiably cruel. It was frigid, running rampant with predators, scarce of nutrients, and crammed full of carcasses. The antagonistic waves solemnly accepted in sunlight, along with its generous rays' fervor. Aquatic life suffered for this reason. In order to survive, you had to play cautiously. A wandering clownfish, one of the few of his kind at the time, came across a swaying enchantress, whose allure was attributed to her vibrant hues, contrasting the wasteland she illuminated with her fluorescent glow. In response to her lack of acknowledgement of him, a tiny, timid, and frail fish, who had to swim tirelessly to survive, he drew nearer, until his fin touched an elongated tentacle. Intrigued by his immunity to her glint, the anemone spoke to him in a hushed tone.
How is it that you aren't stunned and paralyzed by my venom? I need the nutrients of your flesh in order to survive this long night.
Of course, the clownfish didn't know either. His thick skin, which was coated with mucus, was just something he was born with. Nonetheless, he felt obligated to take up the chance of conversation with her.
It's because you were made for me and I for you. We were destined to meet here and work together.
The anemone scoffed and waved her tentacles in disapproval.
Says who?
The clownfish avoided the swinging extensions. Realization enlightened him. If the anemone was venomous to other fish, couldn't she protect him and his future offspring from starving scavengers who struck while he slept?
The Maker who keeps us alive and fed and periodically shines his light. The one who's above the very surface of the sea. He told me that that's how it will be.
She looked surprised at this and hummed real slow.
The Maker? Well, if he says, then it must be so.
The clownfish's face grew a deeper orange. His plan had succeeded. This is exactly what he needed.
So here is the deal, the way things must be. You will incubate my young and protect me, a safe place to return, a home. And in return, I will provide you with the nutrients that you need to survive.
The clownfish spoke with conviction, a cocky undertone present. Nevertheless, the anemone agreed. If they both helped each other, certainly life in this chilling deep blue would get better for both of the two. So that's how they lived for a long, long time. The reliance was mutual. It was fine until the reef began to grow, and with its growth came more fish, more plants, and warmer weather. The clownfish would stay out longer to see all there was to see while he would eat. At night, he would return home, when the sea was black and the reef was still. He'd never have to worry where he would return. He'd tell the anemone about the new things and the usual, and the anemone would be envious of his fins, of his ability to move. The clownfish was not oblivious. That's not how you survive. He could feel the longing from the anemone to swim. But to her, there's only one way: uproot and die. That's when you can float to the surface, roll ashore, and join the Maker. Eventually, it began to plague his mind. His ego grew until he felt total control over her, because to her, he was her only source of life. He completely forgot about the things she did that helped him too. It became apparent, at least it was made so from him to her, that no matter what, at the end of the day, he could always leave. That was his ultimatum. If he did, she would be left with nothing. He could find another anemone who was longing for his nutrients if she was ungrateful, and because of this, he would treat her however he pleased. Then a time came when there were many clownfish and many anemones. It became clear to the anemone that the way the clownfish treated other species, clownfish, and even other anemones was much different than how she was treated. The anemone demanded justice, although it was a very soft demand at first, since she still needed to rely on the clownfish for her food. She was fed up with watching him socialize, while she herself didn't have the means to do so. As the reef reached a point of high production levels, it began to attract even more new species. Some in particular, which were attracted to the increased zoo and phytoplankton in this new booming ecosystem, such as sardines, anchovies, herring, and mackerel, were incredibly small. So miniature, in fact, that the anemones could eat them without any help when the schools of them would swim by, which by now had become frequent. Faced with this opportunity, the choice fueled by the clownfish's constant unfulfilled promises to change, the anemone decided to end their century-long relationship in order to achieve her own freedom. She would no longer have to spend all of her energy keeping the young clownfish safe and warm while relying solely on him. She could spend it socializing with the newfound anemone population instead. Although she still couldn't do all the things he could, like swim, she still felt that the redirected energy had changed her life. She barred the clownfish from her life completely, leaving him and his future offspring completely vulnerable. In fact, the clownfish, without having a place to incubate eggs, wouldn't be able to have any offspring at all. But just as things happen, when things are bad, expect, well, worse. The balance had been completely destroyed in the reef. There were too many anemones, eating too many small sea creatures, and food began to run out for the carnivorous animal. There were too few clownfish, in turn causing too many plankton, consuming too much oxygen in the water, killing hypersensitive plants, and too much algae. This deadly algae bloom, which casted dark shadows over the reef and blocked the sun, created hypoxic conditions, driving away most of the fish. Oh, what a mess. Despite this terrible tragedy and the future of the entire reef depending on their ability to come together again, neither the clownfish nor the anemone would come around to it. The clownfish believed he had been unfairly wronged by the anemone, unable to put his pride aside and approach her first. And the anemone had decided that if it was the Maker's will to kill the reef, then that shall be what happens. Both of them sat back, watching their home wither away to its preventable fate, until sooner thereafter, they too perished. A wandering clownfish, one of the few of his kind at the time, came across a swaying enchantress.